Welcome to Private Stories, where people discover who they really are. She did not notice the moment it appeared. The airport lounge in Seattle was warm, quiet, wrapped in the soft golden light of evening. Clarissa Blake sat in a leather chair with a glass of complimentary champagne in her hand, laughing politely at a man she had met only 10 minutes earlier. He wore a navy suit and expensive glasses, the type of stranger who enjoyed conversations with confident women. And Clarissa was always confident. Her dark hair fell smoothly over one shoulder. Her green eyes sparkled with the controlled charm she used in boardrooms and investor meetings. Tonight she was flying to Boston for what she had told everyone was the most important presentation of her career. A meeting that could redefine her position in the company. A meeting that could change her future. At least that was the story she told. She leaned forward slightly, opening her handbag to take out a compact mirror. Her fingers brushed something soft. Velvet. She froze. The object was unfamiliar. For a brief moment she frowned as if trying to remember whether she had placed something there earlier. Then she reached deeper into the bag and pulled it out. A small black velvet box. Her smile faded slowly. The stranger beside her continued speaking about venture capital trends, but his voice became distant noise. Clarissa stared at the box resting in her palm. Her manicured fingers hesitated. Then she opened it. Inside lay a ring. A gold wedding ring. Her wedding ring. The same one she had tearfully told me she lost 3 weeks earlier during a business trip to Chicago. She blinked. Once. Twice. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound escaped. The ring glittered under the lounge lights like a quiet accusation. But that was not the worst part. Folded beside the ring was a small white note. Just 2 lines written in calm handwriting. You do not have to lie about late meetings anymore. I already left the key on the kitchen counter. She read the message once. Then again. Slower this time. The color drained from her face. The man beside her asked something. She did not respond. Her heart began racing so fast she could feel it in her throat. Her thoughts started running backward through time like a film rewinding itself. Because the ring in her hand was not lost. I had found it. Let me take you back a little. Not to the beginning of our relationship. Not to the day we said our vows. No, the story really began 2 Thursdays earlier. That night Clarissa stood in the hallway of our townhouse in Arlington adjusting the sleeve of her white blazer. She smelled different. Not the familiar vanilla perfume she usually wore. Tonight the scent was warmer. Something like tangerine and cinnamon. New. Unfamiliar. I remember watching her carefully. She avoided my eyes while speaking. Long meeting tonight, she said. Brand overhaul for a pharmaceutical client. Everyone has to stay late. Her voice sounded casual yet strangely rehearsed. She grabbed her purse. Her heels clicked against the wooden floor. Then she walked out the door without another word. At 8:37 that evening curiosity overcame me. I opened the location app we shared for convenience. Her phone was not at the office. Not even close. Instead the small glowing dot blinked on the other side of the city. A restaurant. The Glass Lantern. I knew that place very well. The previous year I had reserved a table there for our wedding anniversary. Clarissa had laughed when she saw the bill. Too expensive, she said. Next time choose somewhere simpler. Yet now she was there. Without me. I called the restaurant pretending to arrange a reservation. Do you have a table tonight under the name Clarissa Blake? The hostess checked. No reservation. My stomach tightened. Then I asked another question. Has anyone checked in recently under the name Avery? Pause. Yes, sir. Table for 2. Corner booth. For a long moment I stared at the wall of my office. I did not drive to the restaurant. I did not storm in. I did not call her. Instead I simply waited. 2 days later opportunity arrived quietly. Clarissa left her car keys on the coffee table while rushing to another supposed meeting. Her silver Lexus sat in the driveway. I decided to fill the gas tank for her. Just a normal, helpful gesture. But when I sat in the driver's seat, something immediately felt wrong. The seat was pushed far back. Too far for her height. Clarissa was 5'6". The position suggested someone much taller had driven the car recently. Inside the glove compartment, I noticed gum wrappers from a brand she hated. And then I saw something else. Between the passenger seat and the floor mat, a flash of gold. Her wedding ring. It was wedged in a place where no careful person would accidentally drop it. Not unless it had slipped from a hand in a moment of urgency, or distraction, or intimacy. That was the moment I stopped wondering. Because I already knew. Not suspected. Knew. I sat in the parked car for a long time staring at the ring in my palm. The weight of it felt strangely heavy. Not just gold. Proof. That was when the plan formed in my mind. Not revenge. I did not want shouting or accusations. I wanted clarity. Something undeniable. Something silent. So I arranged a small surprise waiting for her inside the airport lounge. And now there she was. Frozen in a leather chair hundreds of miles away. The ring resting in her hand like the final signature on a document she never realized she had been signing. But what Clarissa did not know, what she could not possibly know, was that I was not the only person who had left her a message that night. Someone else had placed a reminder inside her bag as well. And that second message would soon destroy far more than our marriage. Clarissa remained seated in that lounge chair for a long time. Much longer than anyone around her realized. To the strangers passing by, she simply looked like another traveler checking messages before a flight. But inside her mind something was collapsing. The ring rested in her palm. The note trembled slightly between her fingers. 13 minutes passed. 13 full minutes without movement. I know the exact time because someone was watching her. Not a private investigator. Not someone I paid. Someone who once worked with her. A woman named Lydia Carter. Lydia had short blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that rarely missed anything. Years earlier, she and Clarissa had been close colleagues. They used to have lunch together, share office gossip, celebrate promotions, until the day Clarissa received one. After that promotion, the friendship faded quickly. Group messages went unanswered. Office drinks stopped. Invitations disappeared. Success had quietly turned Clarissa into someone else. The night before Clarissa left for her trip, Lydia called me unexpectedly. Her voice sounded cautious, as if she were stepping onto thin ice. "You deserve to know the truth," she said. Then she told me something that made my stomach twist. A month earlier, the company had hosted a marketing retreat in Scottsdale. Executives, consultants, networking events. During that retreat, Lydia had walked past one of the hotel suites late at night. The door was half open. Inside, she saw Clarissa and a man. They were sitting on the carpet barefoot beside a small table covered in empty wine glasses. Clarissa wore an oversized jacket that clearly belonged to him. Lydia said the man introduced himself earlier that day as a consultant. His name was Daniel Cross. At the time, Lydia did not suspect much. But something about the scene had bothered her. Later, she learned something worse. Clarissa had been secretly sending confidential campaign material to this same man. Information that should never have left the company servers. Lydia confronted her privately. Within a week, Lydia was called into human resources. Clarissa claimed Lydia had violated company protocol during a campaign launch. An investigation followed. Lydia lost her job. That was how easily Clarissa erased obstacles. By the time Lydia told me this story, her voice had become bitter. But she also told me something else. Something I never expected. "I left a message for her," Lydia said quietly. "What kind of message?" I asked. "A reminder." Her words hung in the silence of the call. I waited. "Clarissa steps on people when she climbs," Lydia continued. "Careers, friendships, reputations. Everything she crushes to reach the top eventually remembers." She told me she had placed a small gold compact mirror inside Clarissa's handbag. Inside the mirror, she folded a handwritten note. The words were simple. "Everything you stepped on to climb upward still remembers your weight." I imagined Clarissa sitting there in the airport lounge holding two messages. Two quiet reminders. One from her husband. One from the woman whose career she destroyed. Neither angry, neither loud. Just truth placed carefully in front of her. And truth can be far more terrifying than rage. Lydia stayed nearby long enough to observe what happened next. Eventually Clarissa stood up slowly. Her expression looked pale and distant. She walked toward the terminal restroom holding her phone tightly. Lydia followed at a distance. Inside the restroom, Clarissa locked herself in one of the stalls. Moments later, Lydia heard her speaking on the phone. Her voice was low at first, then sharp. "Why did you not tell me someone was watching us?" There was a long pause while she listened. Her breathing grew heavier. Then suddenly the stall door burst open. Clarissa stepped out, gripping the phone so hard her knuckles were white. She said only one final sentence. "You should have warned me." Then she hurled the phone into the trash bin beside the sinks. The device shattered against the metal. Lydia expected her to panic. Instead, Clarissa stood perfectly still, staring at her reflection in the mirror. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she walked out. But she did not return to the lounge. She did not board her flight. Instead, she went straight to the ticket counter and booked a new flight to a completely different city. No investor meeting, no presentation, no business trip. Everything she had told everyone was a lie. She was leaving, disappearing somewhere else. At that same moment, I was already finishing something back home. By the time her plane took off, her keycard no longer opened the door to our house. Her clothes had been folded neatly into two large suitcases. I delivered them to her sister's house in Baltimore. Inside the front pocket of one suitcase, I placed another short note. "You always said you wanted a fresh start. Here it is. You are free to chase anything you want now. Just not while being married to me." I thought that would be the end. The quiet collapse of a dishonest marriage. But I was wrong. Because the truth was far more complicated than an affair. The man Clarissa had been seeing was not just a consultant. He was married. And his wife knew something too. 3 days after Clarissa vanished, someone appeared at my front door. I did not expect anyone, especially not her. She knocked once, calm and deliberate. When I opened the door, I saw a woman standing on the porch. She had copper-red hair that rested just above her shoulders. Her dark eyes were focused and steady. She wore a charcoal coat and held a thick folder under one arm. Not angry, not crying, just controlled, like someone who had already rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times. "Are you Wendell Harper?" she asked. I nodded slowly. She extended her hand slightly. "My name is Mallory Cross." Then she said something that instantly changed everything. "I believe we are both married to the same lie." For several seconds, I simply stood there holding the door. Mallory Cross waited patiently on the porch. The early evening wind moved lightly through her copper hair while her eyes remained fixed on mine. She did not look emotional. She looked prepared. Finally, I stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. She walked into the house slowly, as if studying every corner. Not curious. More like confirming something she had already imagined. The kitchen lights cast a soft glow across the counter when she placed the thick folder down. Then she opened it. Inside were photographs, hotel lobbies, parking garages, blurry phone screenshots taken through glass windows, 2 airline boarding passes, and a receipt from an upscale jewelry boutique in Georgetown. My stomach tightened. Clarissa's name appeared clearly printed under a special order. Cufflinks. Engraving DC. Mallory flipped to the next page. There was a printed email. From her husband's inbox. Addressed to Clarissa. "We cannot keep using the same hotel. My wife's friends are starting to ask questions. Let's change cities. Same initials, different coast." I felt my chest grow tight as I read the message again. Mallory continued turning pages. Another email appeared. This one forwarded by Clarissa. She was explaining the days when I would be out of town. Even describing exactly where I kept the spare house key inside our garage. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. I had imagined betrayal. But inviting another man into my own home, that thought had never crossed my mind. Mallory finally closed the folder and sat down at the dining table. She exhaled slowly. I was planning to confront him at his office, she said. But then I realized something. She looked up at me. Maybe it would be better if they saw us first. I frowned slightly. Her expression remained calm. Let's send them a picture, she continued. You and me sitting at this table. Dinner. Wine glasses raised. Laughing like old friends. Let them wonder how long we have known each other. Let them imagine what we might already know. For a moment I stared at her, wondering whether grief had pushed her into something irrational. But then I understood what she meant. This was not revenge. It was exposure. People like Clarissa and Daniel did not fear consequences. They feared being seen. Mallory wanted them to feel the same uncertainty we had been living with. After a moment, I nodded. That evening we ordered Thai food from a restaurant down the street. The house felt strangely quiet. We did not pretend to flirt. We did not act like friends. Two strangers connected only by betrayal. We sat across from each other in silence while the smell of curry and basil filled the room. Mallory poured wine into 2 glasses. Then she picked up her phone. No filters. No posing. Just a simple photograph. 2 people sitting at a dining table. The remains of dinner between them. A quiet evening. She pressed send. Minutes passed. Then my phone lit up. Clarissa. I ignored the call. Mallory's phone vibrated next. Daniel. She muted it without looking. Soon the messages began arriving. What is this? How do you know each other? Is this some kind of setup? We did not answer. Instead, Mallory leaned back in her chair and said something I would never forget. They have been lying for months, she said softly. Maybe longer. But people like them do not fear punishment. They fear the moment someone finally sees them clearly. That night changed everything. We were no longer abandoned spouses trying to understand betrayal. We were witnesses. And the deeper we looked, the stranger the story became. 2 days after the photo was sent, something unexpected happened. Silence. No angry responses. No threats. No explanations. Clarissa never came home. Daniel stopped contacting Mallory completely. It was as if both of them had simply vanished. At first, the quiet felt peaceful. Then it began to feel suspicious. I discovered the truth accidentally. One afternoon, I was reviewing old bank statements looking for a misplaced invoice. Something ordinary. But a strange pattern caught my attention. Small wire transfers. Every 2 weeks. Each payment just under $400. The money was going to a consulting agency I had never heard of. Straight Line East. At first I assumed it was one of Clarissa's professional subcontractors. She outsourced many small tasks. But then something else appeared. The same payment. Twice. One transaction under her name. Another under mine. Except I had never authorized mine. My stomach turned cold. I logged into the shared financial platform we had not used for almost a year. Clarissa once insisted separating our accounts would make life simpler. But what I found inside hers was anything but simple. There were payments to a postal box in Richmond. Hotel reservations in cities she had never mentioned visiting. And one transaction that made my hands tremble. A security deposit. For a 2-bedroom apartment. Signed 4 months earlier. Under both our names. I printed everything. Every transaction. Every document. Then I drove to meet Mallory. She read the pages quietly at my kitchen table. Occasionally pressing her fingers against her temple. As if holding her thoughts together. Finally she spoke. They built a backup life, she said. A what? A safe place if everything collapsed. If either of us discovered the affair. They already had somewhere to disappear. My chest tightened. Clarissa had not just cheated. She had been building an entirely separate existence. Funded with our money. Signed with our names. Mallory contacted a friend who worked in tenant services. Within a day, we learned the apartment had been used regularly for months. Sometimes both of them stayed there, sometimes only one. The place was modern, minimal, sterile. No photographs, no personal items, just furniture, a perfect hiding place. But the final detail shattered something inside me. Hanging on the living room wall was a framed art piece. A painting I had bought during a weekend trip to Charleston with Clarissa. She once told me she hated it, said she donated it. Yet there it was, decorating the secret apartment she shared with another man. Mallory leaned back in her chair and whispered the thought I was already fearing. They were preparing to disappear. Not someday, soon. And what we uncovered next would prove something far more disturbing. This was never just an affair. It was a plan. The more we searched, the clearer the pattern became. Clarissa and Daniel had not simply been meeting in secret. They had been preparing an escape. Mallory used her contacts in real estate and financial services. I searched through Clarissa's old cloud backups that she had never bothered deleting. Hidden deep inside one of the folders, I discovered something labeled Exit September. The name alone made my chest tighten. Inside were several documents, travel schedules, property listings, a withdrawal strategy from an offshore investment account, and then something that made my pulse pound. Scans of passports, not their real ones, new identities, different last names, different birthplaces, but the photographs were unmistakably them. Clarissa smiling beside Daniel, as if none of the destruction they caused mattered at all. Mallory read through the documents slowly. When she finished, she closed the laptop and looked directly at me. "This is not about love," she said quietly. "This is preparation. Preparation for what I asked. To vanish." And they were almost ready. The plan was simple and terrifying. A final transfer of funds. Then they would disappear to Portugal. Quiet property near the coast. New names. New lives. And the money. The money would come from investors who believed they were funding a promising technology startup. Except the company did not exist. It was nothing more than a polished presentation. A few legal-looking documents, and a network of shell corporations. Clarissa had been the face, the charming executive who convinced people to trust the opportunity. Daniel had stayed behind the scenes, invisible, but the money trail connected everything. When we looked closer at the Cayman Investment Group mentioned in the files, another discovery emerged. A name, buried deep within the documents. Elias Corbin. Neither of us recognized it. Mallory stared at the name thoughtfully. Then she said something that shifted everything again. "Let's find out who he is." Within 72 hours, we had our answer. Elias Corbin had once been a real person, a technology investor from Denver. He retired early and disappeared from public life 3 years earlier after a dispute with a business partner. No interviews, no social media, no obituary. Just silence. But someone had been using his identity, opening accounts, registering businesses, signing contracts, and every digital trace pointed to 2 locations, Virginia and Houston, the same cities Clarissa frequently visited for so-called conferences. My stomach twisted as the realization formed. She was not just involved. She was helping create the illusion. She signed paperwork, handled communications, met investors, while Daniel hid safely in the background. The entire operation was built on deception. A fake startup promising revolutionary encrypted logistics technology. Private placements. High-yield returns. It sounded impressive, but there was no product, no prototype, only presentations and empty promises. We eventually obtained the list of investors. Several doctors, a retired naval contractor, a handful of corporate executives, and one name that caught Mallory's attention immediately, Arnold Destry, a financial litigation attorney based in Baltimore. Mallory pointed at the name. "That is where we begin," she said. 2 days later, we sat in Arnold Destry's office. A quiet room filled with law books and the smell of coffee. We did not accuse anyone. We simply laid the documents across his desk. The shell companies, the transfers, the signatures, the apartment lease. Arnold examined everything carefully. His expression never changed. After several minutes, he leaned back in his chair. "You two have walked into something much larger than you realize," he said. He explained that he had already suspected something unusual about Daniel's investment project. The early returns being reported to investors resembled the structure of a pyramid scheme. New money paying earlier participants. A cycle designed to look profitable until it collapsed. But he had lacked proof. Until now. With the documents we provided, the situation became clear. Wire fraud. Interstate financial crimes. If they moved the money again, federal authorities would become involved quickly. Arnold closed the folder and looked at both of us. "If you expose this the wrong way, they will destroy your credibility," he said. "Daniel has done this before. And Clarissa is very skilled at presenting herself as the victim. But if you document everything carefully, every timestamp, every transaction, then the truth will speak louder than any story they invent." He agreed to help us quietly, through legal channels that most people never see. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt something different. Not anger, purpose, but events began moving faster than we expected. That same night, my phone rang. Clarissa's name appeared on the screen. The first call in weeks. I hesitated before answering. When I finally lifted the phone, her voice sounded completely different. No confidence. No manipulation. Only fear. "Wendell, I think someone is following me," she whispered. For a moment I said nothing. Her breathing sounded uneven. "Where are you?" I asked. "Atlanta," she said. That made no sense. The last location I had tracked showed her in Chicago. "Why Atlanta? Why hiding? What happened?" I asked. "There is a man outside my hotel," she said. "Third night in a row. He just watches. I changed rooms. Did not tell anyone. He still found me." Her voice cracked slightly. Not theatrical. Not manipulative. Just frightened. "Did you tell Daniel?" I asked. There was a long pause. Then she answered quietly. He stopped answering my calls. At that moment something became painfully clear. Clarissa had not been Daniel's equal partner. She had been his shield. The public face. The signature on the documents. The person investors trusted. While he remained invisible behind email aliases and shell corporations. And now he was disappearing, leaving her behind with every trace of the crime attached to her name. She was beginning to understand it too. "What did you plan to do together?" I asked slowly. Another pause. Then she answered. "We were going to start over. In Portugal." He said there was a house near the coast. Quiet. Safe. We were going to transfer the funds next week. But now the accounts are closing. I cannot reach him. Her voice trembled. "Wendell, I think he used my name for things I never signed." That confession changed everything. I muted the phone and looked at Mallory. She already understood. We were no longer chasing the truth. We were racing against time. Because Daniel was about to disappear. And if he succeeded, Clarissa would carry the blame for everything. I returned to the call. "Do you still have access to the offshore account?" I asked. "Yes. One backup login." "Good. Do not touch it. Do not move anything. And if that man outside appears again, call the front desk. Not me." She tried to say something else, but I ended the call. Because another message had just arrived on Mallory's phone. A flagged wire transfer. The destination. Private boat registry. Savannah, Georgia. Daniel was not flying away. He was planning to sail. We left before midnight. Mallory drove. The highway stretched endlessly ahead of us while the sky above Virginia darkened into deep blue. Neither of us spoke much. There was nothing left to say. Everything had already been decided. If Daniel was planning to leave the country by boat, we had only a small window before he disappeared beyond any jurisdiction. Arnold had already alerted certain compliance channels quietly. The flag transfer ensured that authorities would start looking. But investigations take time. And Daniel was the type of man who stayed 2 steps ahead. By the time dawn began to brighten the horizon, we were entering Savannah. Fog rolled over the water like slow-moving smoke. The marina was almost empty at that hour. Mallory parked the car in a side lot overlooking Pier 4. We stepped out quietly. The wooden docks creaked softly beneath the morning wind. For a moment everything felt strangely peaceful. Then I saw him. A tall man standing near a sleek white sailboat. Dark windbreaker. Sunglasses even though the sun had barely risen. Daniel Cross, or whatever his real name actually was. Later we would learn his true identity. Malcolm Danner. A man who had changed names 3 different times during the last decade. Mallory lifted her phone and quietly began taking photographs. Daniel moved with calm efficiency. No panic. No rushing. He carried a small travel bag and spoke briefly with a marina worker before stepping onto the boat. He looked exactly like someone leaving for a relaxing sailing trip. Not like a man running from a collapsing financial scheme. But con artists rarely look like criminals. They look like charming businessmen. They look trustworthy. That is how they survive. For several minutes we simply watched. I could have walked down the dock, confronted him, demanded answers, but that would have solved nothing, because the real trap had already been set. The documents, the wire transfers, the investor testimony, the evidence now existed far beyond this quiet marina. Mallory lowered her phone. "He thinks he is escaping," she said softly. I nodded. The engine started. The sailboat slowly pulled away from the dock. Daniel stood near the wheel adjusting the course as the vessel moved toward open water. He never once looked in our direction. Never noticed the 2 people watching him from the parking lot. And that was exactly how we wanted it. Because letting him believe he had escaped meant he would not destroy the evidence he left behind. The moment he crossed into international waters, several automatic alerts would activate through the financial monitoring systems Arnold had contacted. His freedom would last only a little longer. By the time the sailboat disappeared into the morning fog, the outcome was already sealed. Later that afternoon, my phone rang again. Clarissa. This time her voice sounded very different. Not frightened, just tired. "You were never the fool," she said quietly. I did not answer immediately. For the first time in weeks, my thoughts felt calm. "You still have a choice," I told her. "You can tell the truth before they come looking for you, or you can run." The line remained silent. Then the call ended. 2 days later, Arnold contacted us with news. Clarissa's lawyer had reached out. She was willing to cooperate. Fully. She provided every login, every password, every financial record connected to Daniel's network of shell companies. Whether she acted out of regret or fear, I will never truly know. But her testimony completed the investigation. For weeks later, Malcolm Danner was arrested when he stepped off a different boat in Puerto Rico. A routine customs background check triggered multiple alerts. Within hours, federal agents connected the identities, the evidence, the missing funds. There were no dramatic courtroom speeches, no headlines, just quiet justice, the kind that unfolds slowly but completely. Mallory and I met once more several months later. A small bookstore cafe in Georgetown. The autumn air outside carried the smell of rain and fallen leaves. We drank coffee and talked. Not about Daniel. Not about Clarissa. We talked about ordinary things. About who we used to be. And who we might still become. Before leaving, Mallory said something I still remember clearly. Maybe we were supposed to collide like this. Not to save each other, but to remind each other what it feels like to finally be seen. She smiled. And for the first time since everything began, I smiled back. 7 months have passed since then. I moved to a quieter town along the coast of North Carolina. These days I work part-time with a nonprofit organization that helps victims of financial scams rebuild their lives. Not because I needed a job, because I needed purpose. I stopped asking why the betrayal happened. I stopped checking Clarissa's social media, and I stopped wearing the wedding ring I once believed I would never remove. Sometimes I visit the marina near my new home. I stand there watching the water and listening to the wind moving across the docks. Not searching for ghosts, just breathing, because I finally understand something simple. Escape does not always mean running away. Sometimes escape means choosing yourself again. And this time, I did. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Visit our channel for interesting and intriguing stories.